For 119 days, the most powerful people in the military stood around a machine that refused to move. Engineers with decades of experience, advanced technology, and millions of dollars could not bring the broken tank back to life. The world saw a piece of useless metal sitting inside a massive military facility, but hidden beneath the dust, rust, and damaged parts was a story nobody expected, a story about a forgotten father, a second chance, and a man who proved that sometimes the greatest solutions come from the people everyone overlooks. Before we begin this emotional journey, if you believe kindness, determination, and second chances can change lives, take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share this story with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel Beyond Single Dad for more inspiring stories. The morning that changed everything began inside a giant military repair facility where a damaged armored tank had become a symbol of frustration. The machine was not an ordinary vehicle. It represented years of engineering, millions of dollars in investment, and the pride of everyone who had worked on it. But after a major mechanical failure during a test mission, it stopped completely. For nearly 4 months, teams of specialists tried everything. They replaced systems, tested electronics, examined the engine, and studied every possible failure point. The military had already spent nearly $2 million trying to repair the machine, but every attempt ended the same way. The tank remained silent. Among the hundreds of people walking through the facility every day was a man nobody paid attention to. His name was Callan Mercer, a 42-year-old single father who arrived wearing old work clothes, carrying a small metal toolbox that had followed him through years of difficult jobs. Callan was not a decorated military engineer. He did not have a powerful title. He was not someone whose name appeared on important documents. To most people inside the facility, he was simply a maintenance worker who had been called in for a temporary inspection. But behind that quiet face was a lifetime of experience. Years earlier, Callan had worked as a mechanic in a small rural workshop. He had learned machines not from expensive classrooms, but from long nights repairing old farm equipment, broken trucks, and anything people could not afford to replace. He had a rare ability to understand machines by listening to them. He often said that every machine had a voice, and the trick was learning how to hear it. Life had not been easy for him. After losing his wife several years earlier, Callan became the only parent to his young daughter, Maris. Every morning before work, he prepared breakfast, packed her school bag, and made sure she never felt the weight of the struggles they carried. There were nights when he sat alone at the kitchen table, looking at unpaid bills and wondering if he was doing enough. He had lost better jobs because he needed flexible hours to care for his daughter. Some people saw him as a man who had fallen behind. But Callan knew something they did not: being responsible for someone you love can become the strongest motivation a person ever has. When Callan first walked near the broken tank, he did not see a hopeless machine. He saw something familiar. He saw a problem waiting for patience. The senior engineers had already opened every major system. They had analyzed reports, studied data, and followed the expected methods. But Callan noticed something small that everyone else had ignored. The damage reports did not match the symptoms. He spent hours walking around the tank, carefully examining every detail. He placed his hand on different parts of the machine, listened closely, and studied the marks left behind from previous repairs. At first, people laughed quietly. They had spent millions trying to solve the problem, and now a man with a small toolbox was standing there looking at the machine like it was an old truck sitting in a backyard. But Callan did not care about the attention. He was not there to prove anyone wrong. He was there because he believed the machine could be saved. The next day, he returned before sunrise. The facility was almost empty when he began working. The cold air filled the building, the lights above hummed, and the massive tank sat silently in front of him. For hours, he followed a different path. Instead of replacing expensive components, he searched for the reason behind the failure. He discovered that a small connection deep inside the system had been damaged in a way that caused the entire machine to shut down. It was not a dramatic failure. It was not a massive broken engine. It was one overlooked issue that had been hidden beneath layers of complexity. But fixing it was not simple. The damaged part was difficult to access, and the repair required precision. Every person watching knew there was a chance it would fail again. Callan continued anyway. As he worked, he thought about his daughter. He remembered all the times she had watched him repair broken things at home. She once told him that he was good at fixing things because he never gave up on them. Those words stayed with him. After several long hours, the final adjustment was made. Everyone stood nearby as the test began. The room became silent. The system powered on slowly. Lights appeared. The machine responded. Then came the moment nobody had seen in 119 days. The tank moved. The massive vehicle that had defeated teams of experts finally came back to life. For a moment, nobody spoke. The same people who had doubted Callan stood there in disbelief. The men who had been overlooked had solved the problem everyone else had failed to solve. But the most emotional moment came afterward. Instead of celebrating the attention, Callan quietly packed his toolbox. He did not ask for a reward or recognition. His first thought was getting home in time to have dinner with his daughter. When people later asked him how he managed to solve something that had confused so many experts, he explained that sometimes people look for complicated answers because they forget to understand the simple ones. The story of Callan Mercer spread throughout the facility, but the biggest change was not in the repaired tank. It was in the people who witnessed what happened. They realized that talent does not always come with a title, and wisdom does not always come from a position of power. A single father who had been struggling to keep his life together reminded everyone that experience, patience, and heart still matter. Months later, Callan continued working. His life did not suddenly become perfect. He still faced challenges. He still worried about bills and the future. But something had changed inside him. He no longer saw himself as someone who had been left behind. He saw himself as someone who still had something valuable to give. And his daughter, Maris, grew up knowing that her father was the kind of person who could look at something broken and believe it was worth saving. Sometimes the world searches for heroes wearing uniforms, carrying medals, or standing in the spotlight. But sometimes heroes are ordinary people walking through difficult days, carrying old tools, raising children alone, and quietly showing everyone what strength really looks like. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that one person's kindness and determination can make a difference, please support this video by liking, sharing, and subscribing to Beyond Single Dad. Your engagement helps these inspiring stories reach more people who need a reminder that hope still exists. Before we end, please comment the word "second chance" below if you believe every person deserves an opportunity to prove their worth. Because sometimes the greatest comeback stories do not begin with someone powerful walking in. Sometimes they begin with a single person who refuses to give up.